The 78th session of the United Nations General Debate is underway as part of a period of high-level discussions that run through September 26. In Colombia, the government and dissident of the Central General Staff of the former FARC announced the official installation of peace talks table and dates for the beginning of a bilateral ceasefire. In Palestine, at least 4 Palestinian citizens were killed and 20 others wounded after a new attack by Israeli occupation forces on the Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, the general debate of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly moved forward as world leaders address different conflicts in favor of peace and accelerate action on the 2030 agenda. World leaders continue to discuss global issues such as the steps to be taken to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals, as well as the different global challenges to advance peace and security. Some of the interventions that took place during today's sessions include those of President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, the President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, and the President of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, among others. During his speech at the United Nations General Assembly, Bolivia's President Luis Arce warned about poverty and inequality in the world and the serious consequences of not addressing that global problem today.
Eliminating poverty and inequality today will prevent unimaginable conflicts of economic distribution and environmental conflict in the future. To build trust, we need to abandon petty interests and work through reciprocity. For example, by freeing all transfers of technology that enable us to save lives and restore Mother Earth. In order to revive global solidarity, we need to recognize each other and our relations within the context of all of us being humans. For example, in the context of climate change, let us recall that each state needs to earmark resources for the damage and loss fund, in proportion to the historic responsibility that should be shouldered with regard to producing greenhouse gases.
The President of Bolivia also referred to the role of the United Nations in the face of a new world order in the international scene.
Pending challenges continue to be many and enormous, and today we find ourselves, however, at the dawn of a new international configuration. We are convinced that we are bearing witness to the building of a new international order, a situation whereby the United Nations and the General Assembly needs to uphold the principles for which it was created and play a vital role. A new world order where we can all participate equally, with equal rights and obligations, without impositions of any kind, without any masters or slaves, without double standards to measure some and others, without sanctions or those that are sanctioned. This needs to be a new order where solidarity would prevail. Complementarity and collaboration need to go above and beyond egotism and pettiness.
Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez, on the other hand, sentenced in one part of his speech that it was impossible to look for equality in the world by keeping the same paradigm that has generated inequality.
It is impossible to want to achieve an equitable future by promoting and continuing the same paradigms that have generated inequality in which we live. International financial engineering has demonstrated that it is abusive and it is unchanged. How can we achieve sustainable development without financing that contributes to this? The international financial system has not demonstrated a determination to adapt itself to a world that wants to restore a lost equality. Quite to the contrary, it only seeks to impose the same orthodox policies that have deepened inequality and misery around the world. The global financial architecture only serves to concentrate income in the hands of the few and to marginalize vast regions of the world. It embraces speculative activity rather than development. It promotes cheap labor rather than dignifying labor.
The Argentine president also highlighted the country's achievements in the search for regional integration with Latin American and Caribbean countries.
Part of this integrationist mission embodied in Mercosur and UNASUR. In these 4 years, we have sought to return to the path of integration with Latin America and the Caribbean and strengthen our dialogue with our partners through political coordination based on solidarity and cooperation. As once was the case with the construction of the European Union, the various institutions of integration in Latin America and Caribbean represent a heritage that the region has shared with humankind in search of peace, cooperation, and justice.
Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi also took the floor at the UN General Assembly and, among other things, called a failure the intention to spread the United States ideals throughout the world.
We find ourselves at a critical junction in history. The global landscape is also undergoing a paradigm shift towards an emerging international order, a trajectory that is not reversible. The equation attributed to the hegemony of the West no longer resonates with the diverse realities of today's world. The former old liberal order, catering to the ambitions of voracious rulers whose hunger has no end, and to that of the capitalist, has been relegated to obsolescence. In short, to endeavor to universalize American ideals throughout the world have proven to be failures.
In this context, the Iranian president spoke about the importance of cooperation among the countries of the region and referred to Iran's participation in multiple international mechanisms.
The future prospects of the region can be secured through the cultivation of profound mutual political trust, fostering extensive economic cooperation, and establishing indigenous security measures. In alignment with this vision, Iran has established a new chapter of constructive relationship with like-minded neighboring countries through membership in regional and international mechanisms such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or the Northeast Economic Corridor. We have prioritized these developments in order to bring their benefits and their fruits for all of the people of the region.
Raisi also accused the United States of promoting violence in Ukraine to weaken the European countries and expressed his country's full support to any peace initiative.
As the Islamic Republic, we do not stand nor support any war anywhere, not in Europe nor anywhere else. We do not see any war to benefit any sides in Europe. Any type of tension and fanning the flames of violence in Ukraine has been done by the United States of America in order to weaken the European countries. And this is a long-term plan, unfortunately. We support any initiative for a cessation of hostilities and the war, and support any political measure. We fully announce our support for such initiative.
The president of Algeria, Abdelmajid Tebboune, called for the strengthening of dialogue and delivery so that there can be cooperation and coexistence in the world.
We're gathered here in this room, in this planetary enclosure that welcomes the world, marked by diversity and differences. We want in this sense to strengthen the dialogue as well as the discussions that are held. We want it to be a starting point to establish a world of cooperation, coexistence, solidarity, and equality among nations.
We're going to take our first short break, but before we'd like you to join us on our TikTok at teleSUR English, where you can find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Peace talks between the government of Colombia and the Central General Staff, EMC, of the FARC dissidents are moving forward. From the municipality of Suarez in the department of Cauca, the delegations announced the constitution of a new dialogue table on October 8th in the city of Tibu in the Catatumbo region. Likewise, the parties announced the beginning of a bilateral ceasefire that will last for a period of 10 months. In addition, the delegation of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the FARC announced various gestures of goodwill, among which stands out the non-intervention in the electoral processes, as well as the liberation of military and members of the National Liberation Army held by these dissidents. The Colombian army withdrew at least 18 members of its ranks due to threats to the civilian population in the municipality of Tierra Alta. In an official statement, Army Commander Luis Mauricio Ospina announced the decision to remove 8 professional soldiers, 6 officers, and 4 non-commissioned officers on the grounds that their behavior compromised the principles and values of the military institution. The decision was a result of an investigation carried out regarding the events on September 11th in the village of Bocas del Manso in the department of Córdoba, when a group of armed men posing as dissidents of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, wearing dark clothing and covering their faces, threatened the civilian population of the area, including pregnant women and children.
The Army Command, taking into account the need to apply administrative measures independent from those that can be adopted in the disciplinary and criminal fields, within the legal powers stipulated in Decree Law 1790 of the year 2000, Article 100, has decided to dismiss 6 officers and 4 non-commissioned officers whose actions have compromised the principles and values of the institution. On the other hand, by decision of the Army Commander, and in accordance with the provision of Decree 1793 of the year 2000, Article 13, it was ordered the retirement of 8 professional soldiers.
In Argentina, trade unions mobilized on Tuesday to the Congress in support of the elimination of the income tax law. The several trade union organizations mobilized in support of the analysis and approval of the income tax elimination bill to be debated in the Chamber of Deputies, which will leave more than 800,000 workers, female and male retirees, from paying the tax. The initiative was promoted last week by the Minister of Economy and presidential candidate of the Unión por la Patria, Sergio Massa, and received the support of all the labor centers and trade unions. Argentina's Chamber of Deputies debates a bill proposed by the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, on the elimination of the 4th category of income tax. The special session promoted by the executive seeks to approve the bill to modify the income tax, and another bill proposed by the Minister of Economy about a law on the employment for small and medium companies, which seeks the incorporation of new workers with labor benefits, was added to the executive initiative. The creation of 5 national universities will also be debated in the sessions. The project to modify the income tax, which yesterday obtained Commission approval, will be ready to be dealt with as the first point of the debate by a legislative body. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, said that his country has defined a roadmap for cooperation with China, which includes economic, commercial, technological, scientific, and health nexus. The Venezuelan president highlighted the agreement signed with the several Chinese provinces and cities for cooperation and commercial exchange. He also urged Venezuelan businessmen to join investments for the development of the Caribbean country's special economic zones. Maduro highlighted that he will launch the mission of equality and social happiness to optimize the fight against poverty. The president announced that with Chinese collaboration they are building a 4th satellite with the name of Gran Cacique Guaycaipuro and are making progress in the training of Venezuelan youth in the best Chinese schools. second and final short break, we'll also invite you to our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you can review our broadcast, special interviews, and special news. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Palestine, at least 4 were killed and 20 wounded after a new air attack by Israeli occupation forces on Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. According to local media, clashes between the Israeli army and Palestinian militants broke out when the Israeli defense forces surrounded a house in the refugee camp and started shooting at them. So far, the identity of the victims is unknown, while the injured were transferred to nearby hospitals for treatment. In this context, the Palestinian citizens denounced the increase of attacks perpetrated by the Tel Aviv regime forces. On Tuesday, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu arrived in Tehran for meetings with senior Russian officials. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the visit will contribute to the strengthening Russian-Iranian military ties and will be an important stage in the development of cooperation between the two countries. After the imposition of Western sanctions on Russia following the start of the special operation in Ukraine in February 2022, Tehran and Moscow have deepened their bilateral ties and cooperation in the military sphere. The government of India announced this Tuesday the expulsion of a senior Canadian diplomat in response to the Canadian authorities' accusations that the Asian country was involved in the murder on its territory of one of its citizens. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the diplomat will have to leave India in the next few days, in a measure that reflects the growing concern about the interference of Canadian diplomats in India's internal affairs. According to the statement, the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a separatist leader of Indian origin, which occurred last June in the town of Surrey in western Canada, triggered a diplomatic crisis between the countries. Nijjar was shot by unknown gunmen in the parking lot of a Sikh temple and had been accused of terrorism by the Indian authorities for advocating the creation of an independent state of Khalistan. The Indian government mention comes after Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau claimed during a speech to his country's parliament that according to Canadian intelligence services, India was involved in Nijjar's murder.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the Government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh.
After the Prime Minister's speech, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly announced the expulsion of a senior Indian diplomat, the head of the Asian nation's intelligence services in Canada.
The allegations that a representative of a foreign government may have been involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen here in Canada on Canadian soil is not only troubling, but it is completely unacceptable. If proven true, this would be a grave violation of our sovereignty and of the most basic rule of how countries deal with each other. We've been clear, we will not tolerate any form of foreign interference.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news briefing, and you can find this and many other news on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok, and X. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.